creatures of habit. We live by routine, even ritual. Each day rising, probably around the same time, starting with coffee and maybe checking the news or our emails. Take the same route to work or the same walk around the neighborhood. We live by ritual. The daily office, or what's sometimes called the divine office or the liturgy of the hours, is a way of taking that nature of habit, that life of ritual, and shaping it around prayer. Marking the time, not just by the clock or daily routine, but by communing with God and opening ourselves up to God's presence. And that phrase, the liturgy of the hours, makes perfect sense of this. The hours of our day, the passing of time, are punctuated, marked out as liturgical, worshiping, prayerful time. And this way of marking our days by prayer stretches back thousands of years in our history, even before the beginning of Christianity in its Jewish heritage, when the practice of worship was the morning and evening sacrifice. And over time, this developed into several other points of prayer throughout the day that included singing of psalms and readings from Scripture, along with teaching and reflection on the Scriptures. Early Christians were born out of this practice and kept these daily gatherings for prayer and readings going. In writings of historians of the time, and even in the New Testament itself, we hear of Christians from the very beginning gathering at fixed times of day for specific fixed prayers. And this was also a way of sanctifying ordinary, everyday time. The Roman Forum bell was rung at particular hours of the day, marking times for work and for rest and trade, the beginning and the end of the day, and so on. Early Christians adopted these times as particular times of prayer. And Christians all throughout the world still mark the hours of the day and particular times of prayer by ringing church bells. Faithful living involves marking our time, keeping our days in prayer. We don't have that much to go on as far as the actual structure of these prayers in the first couple of centuries of Christianity. But in the 4th century, when Christianity was officially made legal and recognized as a legitimate religion in the Roman Empire, and things could be lived out more readily and openly, we begin to get a clearer picture of how Christians had been and continued praying together. In writings of monastic leaders in the 4th to the 6th centuries, like John Cassian and Benedict of Nursia, the founder of the Benedictines, we begin to get a more structured look at what the liturgy of the hours looked like. And, well, astonishingly, they're much the same today. Following on from biblical tradition, the early monastics developed a rhythm of prayer throughout the day and night. And this took the pattern of 8 times of daily prayer, ranging from early morning hours around 2 a.m. to just before retiring to sleep. But we can't all be monks. And so there were also cathedral forms of prayer, with fewer services throughout the day that were more reasonable for people who weren't monastics to follow. And this continues today with churches throughout the world holding services of public morning and evening prayer. In the English Reformation, Thomas Cranmer combined matins, very early morning prayer, and lauds, prayer at dawn, and added a few parts of prime, morning prayer, to make one new service of matins, or morning prayer. And he combined vespers, prayer in the evening, and compline, night prayer, to make evening prayer, or evensong. And this pattern of focusing on prayer in the morning and in the evening is still widely practiced in churches today. And beyond the Anglican tradition, other churches follow similar patterns, and morning and evening and night prayer are often counted as major times of prayer, and the other times of day considered minor times of prayer and have shorter forms. Our current American Book of Common Prayer from 1979 has orders for morning and evening prayer, night prayer, midday prayer, and abbreviated versions for prayer at home for individuals and families, and at any time of the day. And the structure today, and even the words of the prayers and texts of Scripture used, are still the same as the earliest versions of the daily office. Morning prayer, opening with the Venite or Psalm 95, for instance, and the canticles or psalms from Scripture being used in particular places, such as the Benedictus, Zacharias song from Luke 1 in morning prayer, and Mary's song, the Magnificat, also from Luke, coming in evening prayer. And the whole structure of the prayers and responses, for example, using the Apostles' Creed and the Lord's Prayer, stretches back centuries and centuries. The beauty of this is that even when we're praying these liturgies with just a few people in church together, or on our own at home, we're joining with millions of others in the world now and throughout the centuries, praying the same words, coming to God with the same petitions and praises, and even at the same times of day. People from every language and living in every circumstance in life, stopping, quieting themselves, and praying together as one, no matter how far apart or what divides them. And this is why we often call this common prayer, because even if we're alone, we're praying in common, joining in community with others by entering into this sacred time, this holy measure of our days. And joining in these prayers also trains us up. It teaches us to pray, teaches us the language of the Church's prayer. They're prayers and readings that have been tried and tested by Christians of every stripe throughout every century. And they're a rich and powerful gift. And I think we have to ask ourselves how our communities could change, how different our life together, our care for one another and for those around us would look if we joined each day with countless others around the world to pray the daily office, shaping our lives, the very time of our days, by communion with God and one another. What would our lives be like if we measured our days by prayer?